My nephew begged to borrow my truck to move his tools for work. He never brought it back. When I finally found it, it had been stripped and sold for parts. He said it was just a vehicle. I reported it stolen, but the police did nothing. So I went to small claims court and found a receipt that changed everything. I'm not the kind of guy who posts stuff like this. I've worked with my hands all my life, kept my head down, and handled my business the old-fashioned way. But what my nephew did to me, it's not just about a truck. It's about betrayal, disrespect, and what it feels like when your own blood uses you like a mark. I'm 62 years old, divorced, no kids. Spent most of my adult life in Independence, Missouri. I did contracting and remodeling, bathrooms, kitchens, drywall, small commercial jobs. Business was good for a while, but after 2020, things slowed down and never really picked back up. I still do a few jobs here and there, mostly from old clients or referrals. That truck, my 2007 Toyota Tundra, was how I kept going. Every ladder, every drill, every bag of cement or box of tile rode in that bed. I kept it clean. Oil changes every 3,000 miles, not a single dent. That truck was a part of me. Then Luke asked to borrow it. Luke's my sister's youngest. His dad left when he was 5, and I always tried to be there for him. I helped him buy his first tool belt. Taught him how to read a tape. He was rough around the edges, but I figured he just needed time to settle. Truth is, he never really did. He jumped from landscaping to framing to painting to flipping stuff off Facebook Marketplace, always chasing the next big opportunity. One Thursday last August, he called me out of nowhere. "Uncle Ray, I finally got something real lined up," he said. "A real job with benefits. Remodeling houses in Lee's Summit. Problem is, I gotta get my tools there. Can I use your truck just for a day or two?" I hesitated. I had a small patch job scheduled for the weekend, but I figured I could push it to Monday. "You'll bring it back by Saturday night?" I asked. "Promise. 2 days, tops. I'll even fill the tank." That last part stuck with me later. I gave him the keys. I gave him my trust. I even loaded up some extra ratchet straps for him in the back. Told him to lock the bed cover. Told him to be careful with the tailgate, cable's a little loose. He nodded like he heard me, like he cared. Saturday night came and went. No truck. No Luke. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Texted. No reply. By Sunday afternoon, I drove to the last address I had for him, some rental in Sugar Creek. His roommate said he'd moved out 4 days ago and left no forwarding address. I remember standing on that porch, holding my phone, my hands starting to shake. I called again. Nothing. That's when I knew. He wasn't planning to bring it back. I filed a stolen vehicle report Monday morning. Officer took my statement, but didn't seem that interested. Said because I gave him the keys, it was a civil issue unless I could prove he intended to steal it from the start. So I asked what the hell I was supposed to do. He shrugged. For the next few weeks, I became obsessed. I drove around every sketchy lot, every salvage yard, every alley he might have dumped it. I checked Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, every used car listing within a 100-mile radius. Nothing. Then on the 19th day, I saw it. I was behind this place called Krieger's Auto Yard. Out by the train tracks, mostly rusted shells and stripped Camaros. And there it was. Or part of it. My Tundra. Frame chopped, but gone. Windows smashed. Tires stripped. The VIN plate was still there, though. I took pictures. My heart was pounding like a drum. I called the cops again. They came out, took a report. But the officer just said, "We can't prove your nephew brought it here. We need surveillance or a witness." That night, I called Luke again. This time, he answered. "What do you want?" He said like I was bothering him. I told him I found the truck. "Yeah," he said. "Well, it wasn't running right. You should have sold it years ago." I was trying to help. "Help?" I shouted. "You sold it for parts." He laughed. I swear to God, he laughed. Then he said, "It's just a vehicle, Uncle Ray. You're acting like I stole your damn house." And then he hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at my phone, feeling like I got kicked in the stomach. I went to small claims court the next morning. Filed a claim for $9,000. That truck wasn't worth that much on paper, but in its condition, and with what it meant to me, that was fair. I brought in every photo, the police reports, the texts. I wasn't going to let this slide. The court clerk told me if I wanted any chance of getting more than a default judgment, I needed to prove he actually profited off it. So I went back to Krieger's. asked if they had any record of who sold them the truck. The owner, a tired-looking guy named Dennis, pulled out an old file. Said he doesn't usually keep records on junkers, but this one came in whole. He remembered it because it had all 4 tires in decent condition. He handed me a copy of the bill of sale. Luke's name, his signature, his damn ID number written next to it. Sold on August 12th, 2 days after he borrowed it, for $2,500 cash. I just stared at it. My hands were shaking. He didn't wait for it to break down. He didn't have second thoughts. He knew what he was going to do from the start. He lied to my face. He used my trust, took something that mattered to me, and cashed it in like it was a poker chip. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing his voice in my head, saying it was just a vehicle. Like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. That was the moment I stopped being the forgiving uncle. I was going to make him pay. After I got that bill of sale from Krieger's, something in me shifted. Before that, I still held on to this dumb hope that maybe Luke just panicked or screwed up. That maybe he'd come around, apologize, offer to make it right. But that receipt? That was cold. That was premeditated. It meant he planned to screw me over the second he got the keys. I brought it to court with everything else. I stapled that receipt to the front of my claim folder so no one could miss it. When I walked into the small claims hearing, I didn't dress nice. I wore my regular jeans and a clean flannel. I wanted the judge to see me for what I am, a working man who got used by his own family. Luke showed up wearing a damn hoodie and cargo shorts, like he was there to contest a parking ticket. No folder, no documents. Just stood there smirking like he thought this was a joke. The judge asked him flat out, "Did you sell the vehicle, Mr. Chandler?" Luke shrugged. "Yeah, I sold it. It was old, barely running. He told me I could use it." I figured he didn't care. I stood up, furious. "I told you 2 days, not to sell it." The judge told me to calm down and then turned back to Luke. "Did you have permission to sell the truck?" Luke got quiet for a second. Then he said, "I mean, technically no. But he gave me the keys. That's on him." I looked at the judge and said, "I trusted him because he's my nephew. That truck was my livelihood. He knew that. He didn't just take my truck, he stole my ability to work." The judge didn't make a decision that day. Said it would be mailed in a few weeks. But I could tell the judge wasn't buying Luke's act. After the hearing, Luke followed me out to the parking lot, lit up a cigarette like nothing happened. "You really took this to court, huh?" he said. "You think they're gonna make me pay $9 grand?" I didn't say anything, just stared at him. Then he said something I'll never forget. "It's not like you were doing much with it anyway. You're too old for this work now. I probably saved you some trouble." That's when it all clicked. He didn't just sell it for money. He wanted to cut me out. Like I was useless. Like I didn't matter anymore. I went home and started digging. Looked up the business he claimed he got hired by. No record. Called some of his old buddies. One of them let slip Luke had been bragging about flipping a truck for quick cash. He told people I gave it to him. That it was a gift. A gift. So I started collecting names. Statements. Text messages. Anything I could use. And the more I dug, the more I found. This wasn't the first time Luke had pulled something shady with family. He borrowed money from his cousin 2 years ago and never paid it back. Took tools from his old boss and ghosted. Burned bridges all over town. I talked to my sister, his mom, thinking maybe she'd finally see the truth. But she just said, "He's young, Ray. He's trying. Maybe you should just let this go." Let it go? I spent 40 years busting my ass. That truck was part of everything I built. And now I was driving around in a borrowed sedan from a friend, turning down jobs I couldn't haul supplies for. And Luke was out there like nothing happened. I knew the court might order him to pay. But I also knew he didn't have the money. And even if I won, collecting would be hell. That's when I realized something. Legal revenge wasn't enough. Luke didn't just take my truck. He took my pride. So I started planning something bigger. And it started with that bill of sale. A week after the court hearing, I got the judgment in the mail. Luke was ordered to pay me $9,000. It felt good for about 5 minutes. Then reality hit. Luke didn't have that kind of money. Hell, he probably didn't have $900. And unlike back in the day, court judgments don't mean a damn thing if the person ignores them. He didn't have a job on paper. No property. No car registered in his name. No bank accounts I could garnish. He was a ghost on paper. But I wasn't done. I started asking around discreetly. One of his old friends, a guy named Corey, used to do roofing work with him. Corey and I had worked a couple jobs together in the past, so when I called him up, he actually picked up. After a bit of small talk, he let something slip. Luke's been bragging about getting in on that cash side gig. Flipping parts, moving junked stuff through a guy down in Grandview. Says he's clearing $2,000 a week, easy. That caught my attention. I pressed him. He's flipping parts? Yeah. Said your Tundra was his first big flip. I played dumb. Wait, my Tundra? Corey got quiet. That's when I knew Luke wasn't just pulling a one-off screw-up. He'd started a little operation. Flipping vehicles, buying old ones dirt cheap or conning them off desperate people, stripping them, then running them through a shop in Grandview. I spent the next week watching that shop. It was tucked behind an old gas station with no sign out front. Just a garage bay and trucks constantly coming and going. I took pictures, license plates, noted which days certain vehicles were dropped off and when new ones showed up. Then I saw him, Luke, walking out of the back office with a clipboard, talking to some guy in a mechanic's uniform, wearing that same smug look on his face. So now I knew he was working under the table, probably off the books, with a guy who ran a shady parts business. This was no longer about me getting repaid. This was about stopping him from doing it to someone else. So I called a friend of mine, Rick. He's an insurance investigator, retired now, but still sharp. I told him what I saw, asked if he'd take a look at the place. Rick visited the shop 2 days later. When he came back, he had news. They're dirty, he said. They're not just flipping parts. They're falsifying repair invoices to cover stolen goods. I saw 2 trucks in there with filed down vents. That's felony level stuff. He gave me the name of the owner, Javier Morales. Already had a record. Nothing major, just some tax issues and one old charge for selling unlicensed salvage parts. Still, enough for law enforcement to take a second look. So I took everything to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. My court case, the receipt with Luke's name, the surveillance photos, the VIN plates, even Rick's written observations. They listened this time. When I handed the deputy the bill of sale and told him Luke had been working with a shop already on their radar, I saw something shift in his face. He asked for my number, said they'd look into it further. Then 2 weeks later, it happened. Javier's shop got raided. They seized 6 vehicles, a laptop, stacks of handwritten receipts. And guess who was there when it happened? Luke. I didn't hear about it from the news. I heard about it from Luke's own mother. She showed up at my door crying, asking if I had anything to do with this. I didn't lie. I said, I gave the police the truth. They did the rest. She looked at me like I'd murdered her son. But I didn't care anymore. Because now the game had changed. Luke wasn't just in trouble for selling my truck. He was now facing charges tied to an entire illegal operation. And I wasn't done. The raid on Javier's shop made local news. They didn't name Luke right away. Just said an unnamed associate had been detained for questioning. But I knew. The next morning, I drove by the county jail. His name was on the log. Luke Chandler. Booked for possession of stolen property, falsifying vehicle documents, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The bond? $15,000. Cash only. I didn't say a word to anyone. Not to my sister. Not to the few people who knew I'd been chasing this for months. I just sat on my porch that night, drank a cup of black coffee, and stared out into the street. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't gloating. But I felt something deep in my chest loosen for the first time in a year. Luke sat in county for 3 days before his mom scraped enough together to get him out. She used her retirement savings. She called me afterward, voice shaking. How could you do this to him? I told her straight. He did it to himself. You just never wanted to see it. She hung up on me. 2 months later, Luke was charged officially. He took a plea deal, 1 year of probation, restitution to be paid in full, and mandatory employment through a court-monitored program. He had to admit in writing, under oath, that he stole and sold my truck without permission. That document is now in a folder in my desk. But here's the part that mattered to me most. The court forced him into wage garnishment. Every paycheck he got from that construction cleanup job, $311.25 a week. 20% went straight to me. At first, I didn't think it would feel like much. $20 here, $40 there. But every 2 weeks, like clockwork, I got a deposit. It wasn't the money. It was the reminder. It was him, working long hours, filthy and tired, while a piece of that sweat got sent to the man he thought he screwed over. It took just under 4 years, but he paid off every damn cent. $9,000. I didn't spend it. I kept it all in a separate savings account. When the final payment hit this past spring, I printed the statement, drove down to the dealership in Blue Springs, and put a down payment on a 2022 Toyota Tundra. Metallic gray. Not because I needed it, but because it was mine. Again, when I drove it off the lot, I didn't think about revenge. I thought about trust and what it costs to give it to the wrong person. Luke hasn't spoken to me since the day he pled guilty. I'm fine with that. He used my name, my kindness, my truck, and thought he'd walk away clean. But every time he cashed a check for 4 years, he remembered whose name was at the top of that court order. And now, I drive past the old shop sometimes. It's closed down. Empty. Just like his chances of ever using me again.